Welcome to Inside South Union Township here on the South Union Township Network. Inside South Union Township is brought to you as a joint cooperative venture featuring Township Supervisors Bob Schiffbauer, Rick Vernon and Jason Scott, Atlantic Broadband Cable, Armstrong Cable, and our friends at CUTV, including Gary Smith. We're continuing our COVID-19 series here today. Brian Morozak along with PA Senator Pat Stefano. Pat, thank you for joining us here today.
You're welcome, Brian. Glad to be here.
And we hope to bring you another informative show talking about COVID-19 here in the area. And in recognizing the seriousness of the COVID-19 virus outbreak, the South Union Township Board of Supervisors is developing programming that will be aired on California University Channel 17. And working with our medical community and key local officials, we are attempting to keep the public informed with pertinent information on how to respond to the coronavirus crisis. This is the second in a series of programs on COVID-19 that will air on Channel 17. And if you have any questions, you can contact South Union Township at southunion@southuniontwp.com. And Senator Stefano, this story certainly is taken over not only the local area, but internationally as well.
Very much so. I mean, this is going to be the story of our lives. We're going to be talking about this for years and years to come. And then we're going to be analyzing all our responses. And I think some of our responses, especially here on the state level, are a little extreme. But we're going to talk about that a little bit and what's happening here at the state level, what you can do to stay safe, what is real, what is not real, and how we can move forward and hope that our lives come back to normal.
I think what's on everybody's mind right now is trying to stay safe in the area.
Yes, trying to stay safe. There's three magic words. That's this: stay safe, stay calm, and stay home. So that's the framework of what I wanted to talk about today, and we'll break those down as we go.
Now, what have you seen so far in being out in the community as much as you can, and obviously being a legislative leader in the area? How is the community coming together and adhering to some of those guidelines?
Well, some of us are doing a really good job, and some of us are not. I know by the numbers, 86% of us will either have no symptoms or very mild symptoms. Some of us won't even know we have it. So there's a sense that, well, it won't affect me. But you don't know if you're carrying it, and then you're going to go talk to somebody else, or you get too close to them, they'll pick it up, and then they take it home, and then their elderly parents might pick it up. Or, worst case scenario, an outbreak in a nursing home. So those are the things we have to be really careful of. And I know the mitigation efforts that the governor's put in place are very, very difficult, and some of them are extreme. But if we can slow this down, we won't overwhelm our healthcare system, and that is the greatest fear. The PPEs you've heard people talk about so much, the personal protection equipment, we don't have enough. Over the last 10 or 15 years, we've been producing materials overseas. We don't make things here anymore. Now that's really coming back to bite us. If we don't have this material that we need, the hospital's going to run out. So we're trying our best to make sure that they don't get overwhelmed.
In regards to the numbers we're seeing from the PA Department of Health, we're taping this program on Thursday, March 26th. We're seeing more and more cases. Just today in Fayette County, 4 new cases reported. We're up to 8 right now. And certainly the trend of continuing cases continues statewide as well.
Yes, so I can give you those numbers real quick. I have them right here. I just was on the teleconference call with the Secretary of Health not more than just an hour ago. And right now in Pennsylvania, we have a little over 1,600 cases. Our caseload doubled from yesterday. We have 560 new cases today in the state of Pennsylvania. Out of that, we have 16 deaths now in Pennsylvania attributed to COVID-19. That's 1%, and that is about the average across the globe right now. It's about 1%. 10% of that number has been hospitalized. Only 3% of that 1,600 plus are considered severe, and only 2% are on ventilators. 48 counties now have cases, and 82 healthcare workers are tested positive.
And obviously folks around the area have been practicing social distancing, staying at home. When do you expect to see some of these numbers start to drop?
That was the question I asked of her today, is when do we expect to see these numbers? They don't expect the curve to peak until maybe mid-April.
Wow.
Or even as far as May. My question to them was, everything is in a 2-week advance, so when can we start seeing relief of the mitigation as we see the numbers level off. And she said that's the metric that they're trying to work on, trying to predict when that model will be, so our lives can somewhat come back to normal and still control the amount of people in the hospital.
I think you really a two-pronged system right now. Obviously, you want to try to stay safe. You want to make sure that you and your family don't get this disease. But I think this is having a devastating impact as far as financially on a lot of local businesses around the area.
Yes, there's a huge cost right now in our economy, and I'm sure everyone can feel it. You know, whether you are still employed or whether you're still able to get paid, or if you're filing for unemployment. Those are all these issues we're going to have to be dealing with, and hopefully within a week or two we'll have some relief.
Let's start at the top. If
Yes.
You as a representative and a state senator, what are you telling people out there as far as ways to stay safe?
Well, yeah, some of the best ways to stay safe, of course, is to keep your social distance. If you have to go out, but stay home.
And we've done that here on the set as well.
We've done that. I've been keeping away. I want to talk basically, first I said avoid large groups. You definitely want to avoid large groups. You've heard over and over again, sneeze into your elbow. The particles that are coming out harbor the virus if you have it. And you can be contagious and not have symptoms. That's why they're telling you to do these things. You could have some of the virus if you might have eaten something, touched your face. They tell you to drink lots of water. Because if it's in your throat and you drink it and it goes down into your stomach, it's dead. Where it's bad is when it gets into your lungs. So what does this virus actually do? This virus is a mutation of, they said, bat RNA. You've heard of it, some of this talk, what happened in Wuhan, and where it got started. And it leaped into another animal, and then that animal was slaughtered in a wet market, got on hands, got transmuted to humans. What it does is it attaches to a receptor in your lungs, in the cells in your lungs. It reproduces in there. When it reproduces and breaks out, it causes damage within your lungs. That is where all the serious health crisis comes from. And it causes fibrosis in your lungs, making it very difficult to breathe. Your body reacts like an allergen, builds up fluid in your lungs, make it very difficult to breathe. You heard that in Italy and all these other countries.
And that's why there's such a need for ventilators. You're seeing so many people in the ICUs.
Yeah, and that's how that virus works and how it gets into your body. And I think it's important for people to understand how it works. And the biggest vector of transmission is not breathing, and it's your hands. Believe it or not, your hands. It could be on a surface for 3 to 4 hours. You could touch. How many times do we touch our face? That's where washing your hands is so important. People think, it just keeps your hands clean. No. The way this virus works, it has an outer fatty shell. That's what encapsulates the RNA that's part of the virus. When you wash your hands, the soap actually lifts the virus up off your hand, and that outer shell breaks down and the virus dies. So you actually kill it by washing your hands. You just don't wash it away. You actually kill it. So
you want to wash at least for 20 seconds, too. It's not
Yes.
just one of those throw your hands under water.
It's very thoroughly with soap and water, and it's 20 seconds, or as they say, sing happy birthday to yourself twice.
Yes.
But that's the key behind that, is the fact that if you keep your hands clean, and if you're in places, keep your hands below your elbows. As I always say, keep your hands down, don't touch your face, and then you'll be okay. So that's one of the keys.
And we've seen generally, I think, from the public, a little bit of emotional outburst at times, I think, to this whole situation. And I think, you see so much on the news media, and you see these new cases day after day after day. I think from time to time, people seem to work themselves up a little bit.
Yes.
It really is important to stay calm in these situations.
It is. And that's the other part of that 3 prongs announcement they always say, stay safe, stay calm. Your life and everyone's life is upside down right now. We are in uncharted waters. We've never been here before. And we're trying to deal with things. Our children are home, for crying out loud. They're not in school. And now all of us have become teachers. We're trying to teach them at home and to keep them busy, keep them out of trouble. They're upset. And then our social media and our media bombards us everywhere we go.
I think you see a lot of incorrect information. So you see a lot of
Yes.
rumors, people just throwing things out there, not really using trusted resources with their
Exactly.
information.
So what I try to tell people is try to go on a news fast. stay away from the news for a while because you're going to hear a lot of things you cannot control. So don't try to listen to it all. Then go to trusted sites. And I have a couple of them for you today. Department of Health, of course, that's health.pa.gov. You go there, you get up-to-date information you can read at your own pace without sensationalism.
And they have a new release that comes out 12 noon every day with information.
Yes, at noon every day. You can watch the press conference online. If you choose to, I say don't. It's easier to read it. You can keep you more calm. If you want local news, the one I trust is the Allegheny Conference. Just go to Allegheny Conference. They have COVID-19 update there every day. Click on that, and it'll tell you what's happening in the Pittsburgh region. So that keeps it a little closer to home, so you're not getting the entire state. Because what's happening in Philadelphia isn't going to affect us at all.
And there are local news sources as well. Herald Standard, WNBS, yes. I know, keep you up to date all the time.
They will keep
with
you
all
up
the
to
info.
date. The more local you can stay, the more trusted it will be. And just watch your social media. If you're following Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever the ones you choose, just be very guarded. Limit your time that you're on there. You don't know what you're reading. There's no way to verify the source. That's why I like to follow our trusted news media.
And I think half the issue is people have so much extra time on their hands they're not used to.
I know. Read a good book. Get away. Take a nice walk. We have a beautiful trail right behind us.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
been busy. I've been on it the last week or so,
Yes.
and I was actually talking to Bob Schiffbauer, one of our township supervisors here in South Union Township earlier on today, and how busy the trail's been because folks are getting out. What I've noticed as well, not only folks walking the trail individually, we've seen a lot of families get together. And the one positive thing, out of this whole situation, and I've talked to a lot of folks, walking the trail, I think you're seeing more family get-togethers, more family hikes, game nights coming back into households, stuff that people haven't done in a long time.
We haven't done in a long time because we're not running around like chickens with chasing our kids to sporting events because they're all canceled too.
Yeah.
Which, it's just our life right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's wonderful, and we have these wonderful outdoor activities.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I'm trying to convince the rest of the world they got to come back and move here.
Yeah.
Because we have all these great things that people can do.
Yeah, and we had our niece down with us last weekend, and we bought Electronic Battleship, and I don't think I've played that game in 30 years, but it was nice to be able to kind of go back and do some of the stuff that we used to do 20 or 30 years ago, like you said, walking on the trails, enjoying the parks, and it's good to see some of those outdoor activities are still open and we can still get out, even with everything else going on in the world right now.
Absolutely. So, and it's important to get out and stay healthy.
Yeah, and be smart about it.
Yes, be smart. Avoid the large groups, as we said earlier, and keep your social distancing away. And if you're not feeling well, please stay home.
For sure.
Quarantine yourself. Stay out of people's way until you're sure that you don't have what could be COVID-19.
You're watching Inside South Union Township here on the South Union Township Network. Brian Morozak along with PA Senator Pat Stefano, and we'll have more in just a moment.
Davis and Davis, attorneys at law.
Every person who's been injured, when they come in, has an expectation that their case is important, and it is to us. We take these cases very seriously.
So that experience that we have is unique also because we have experience in these communities, in Uniontown, in Washington, in Waynesburg, in these court systems.
You don't have to go to Pittsburgh to be represented by attorneys who don't know their way around your community.
Davis and Davis, attorneys at law.
Brian Morozak back here at Inside South Union Township with PA State Senator Pat Stefano, continuing our COVID-19 program series. And if you miss any of our broadcasts on Atlantic Broadband Channel 17 or Armstrong Channel 61, you can also look us up on YouTube by searching South Union Television. Also, all of the programs available on the South Union Township website as well. That's southniontwp.com. And Pat, I know you guys have some websites through the state as well that you want to pass along.
Yes. Just to keep everybody up to date, you can always go to senatorstefano.com, and we always have an e-newsletter that is posted there every day giving us updates. And if there's a hot release, we're going to put it out right away so people can get information. So you can always log on to that or sign up for our e-newsletter. It'll come right to your inbox. every time we publish.
And I know your office has been very busy, especially with all these small business concerns. Of course, Governor Wolf over the last couple of weeks has closed down a lot of non-life essential businesses, and there have been opportunities for some of the small businesses that appeared to be initially on that list to apply for waivers. How is that whole process going right now?
Well, the rollout of this closure was rather abrupt, and I don't think the administration was quite prepared for what chaos they started. And if you recall, that Friday, the governor said at 4 o'clock that we're going to close businesses at 8 o'clock. That's very difficult to do.
Yeah, it came down pretty fast.
Very fast. And so they then put up a waiver process. Then said that you can apply for a waiver if you feel that you're on the list. And there is a list at pa.gov that you click on the link for resources, and you can find that list of essential businesses that the administration put together. You get to that list, and if you're not on that list, you are to remain closed, you can apply for a waiver, because we had to push for that. They didn't have a waiver process. And we said, what if you made a mistake? And there was a lot of mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes is they closed coal mines. But yet you're allowed to make steel. So how do you make steel without coal?
Correct.
How do you run your power generation without coal?
I think even initially as well, you had laundromats and a lot of the dry cleaning services were initially closed. I think they were granted some waivers after a couple of days.
We actually pushed for those to be changed. So that was a legislative push to get those open. But we were also able to put in a waiver process. Well, the governor office through DCED put in a waiver process, and there's a link. You can file for a waiver if you feel your business is not correctly marked. And then you submit that, and they'll feed back to whether you should be open or not. And I always like to have everybody who submits one to copy me at Stefano at pascn.gov. So I'm aware that you applied for a waiver, and if it comes back denied, we can go back and see. They don't have an appeals process, but we then go back and say, did you make a mistake? And then we'll reevaluate. And we've been successful so far on several businesses that are very key to business life essentials, so to speak, especially in the steel making industry.
Now, what's the time period here? Because I've actually talked to a couple of businesses that have said they've applied 4 or 5 days ago and still haven't heard back yet.
Correct. The problem is we don't have enough resources. They rolled out this program without enough forethought. They didn't have enough people to field the 15,000 plus waivers that they've gotten. And that's why I think they made mistakes, because by Sunday night they had gone through all of them. And there's no way a handful of people went through that many and thoroughly read each one. So that's why we're saying, hey, you might have made a mistake. Some have gotten a waiver approved, a lot have not. So it's a constant battle, but I insist that everyone at least try.
I think it's tough for all the mom and pops out there when they see places like Walmart or the grocery stores open, and granted they're considered life essential businesses, still operating on a daily basis, and you have people hovering over one another there, and you might have 15 or 20 people, if you're lucky, in your business during the course of a day, and you're suddenly closed for weeks on end due to this whole process.
It's a real problem, because it's economically devastating for everyone. And as owner of a small business myself, I mean, I don't know that we survived this. We're going to try our best, but I feel the pain. And now locally here in Fayette County, you can apply for small business loans to get you through this crisis. And that'll be at Fayette Penn. They are putting together an application process. I was hoping they'd have it done today. I don't believe they did. I didn't get an announcement on it. But it'll be within any day that you can apply to get to a low to no interest loan up to $100,000 to get you through this crisis.
Now, there are actually 2 different types of resource programs available, one through the state and one that's about to be coming out federally. And from what I understand with the new federal program, there's going to be some loan forgiveness there as well, as long as you're continuing to pay your employees throughout this whole situation and remain open. Obviously, on the state level, I don't think there's going to be any loan forgiveness, but a lot of these businesses, if they're continuing to pay their employees, they need this money just to get through this right now.
Correct. Because without being open, you cannot generate revenue. Without that revenue, you can't pay your employees. But through that federal program, they are able to, if they can continue to pay their employees through this crisis and apply for that loan to cover them, and if by the end of June they their employees on payroll, then they can apply for the loan forgiveness. So then that loan becomes a grant, which for small businesses, we're definitely going to need, because you've lost that revenue. You're not going to be able to make it back up.
For sure.
So that relief would be tremendous, especially for our small businesses.
Now, have we heard anything about any kind of caps as far as what the maximum amount for some of those loans are going to be federally? And I think they are going to be limited to businesses under 100 full-time employees.
Most likely. Most likely. I don't know all the specifics, because this is evolving day by day, and that's why I ask people to follow these links.
For sure.
And check with your local sources, like especially in this case, FAPEN, because they'll probably be the one administrating that loan program. So there's somebody local, and that's what is so critical, is we have somebody local we can actually call and talk to. If you have to call Harrisburg, you'll never get a local person. Sure. If you have to call DC, forget it. It's over. So I'm hopeful that's the way the channels will come through, and I encourage our businesses to keep looking. I try to get this information to our local chambers, so they have it and they can disseminate it in FAPEN as well.
Now, are we seeing any kind of a timetable whatsoever as far as how long these closures are going to last?
No. That was a question I asked today, and the answer that I got today was once we see the numbers start to drop, we doubled the cases again today. With those cases going up, we have to wait for them to level off. Then the governor might be more willing to undo some of the mitigation. And I know I get a lot of pressure from the employers of the area. Why can the governor do this? How does he have that kind of authority? The question is, and the answer is, when he declares an emergency, the emergency management language in the state gives him a lot of power. And this is the first case where it's been statewide and it's been a virus. So he's taking the liberty that he has the power to do this. And there's been a couple of lawsuits already filed, and the Supreme Court threw them out. So that pretty much gave the governor
full right. And we're actually seeing the first wave of those closures, the first 14 to 15 day time period coming to an end here, coming up next week. So it's going to be interesting to see, and you have to think from the governor's perspective, some decisions are going to have to be made sooner rather than later.
Yes, and it looks like he's going to extend. That was the information I got today.
We just don't know how long.
We just don't know how long. We have to wait for those numbers to start to drop. So I'm hoping they will level off here in the next day or two. And then, because remember, we're working 2 weeks ahead. The numbers of people were getting infected before we even began the mitigation process. So we're just now seeing them, because it's anywhere between a 2 to 5 to 7 day process for the incubation and for the disease to develop. So that 2 week time period, we're already ahead. So I'm hoping that we can get on top of it.
You actually sent out some information over the last week as well in the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which I think gives some rights to both employees and employers as well. Talk about the whole process, and I think there's a lot of information here.
There's a lot of information as it comes to the Family First. I'm just actually reading about it as well, because this is all brand new. But in this case, if it's COVID-19 related, and there's a lot of criteria there, if you are missing work because you're quarantined or you're caring for somebody who's quarantined, that gives you 2 weeks paid leave, regardless of your policy and your employer, and they can then get a tax credit for that to help recover the costs. If you're caring for children who are home from school, then you get a 12-week paid leave that your employer then can apply a tax credit for. This is all brand new. This has all just recently been enacted, and it's just a way to help small businesses to deal with this issue and then help keep food on the table for our constituents here in the district.
Is this information available online if folks want to go through and
yes,
read through all the info?
Yes. I don't have the link with me, but if you look for Family First Coronavirus Response Act, or Families First Act, you'll be able to get the information. Where did I send it? I sent it to the local chambers just today. So they have that information. It's easy to find online. And you can actually look up the bill if you wanted to and see who voted for it in Congress and in the Senate. and get all the information you need from it. It should be easy to find.
And we've also seen, as far as the unemployment goes, the 1 week waiver period where you always had to wait that extra week, that's been taken out of the system.
Yeah, actually, I was in Harrisburg yesterday. We had session yesterday, and the point of that, we actually did last week. We approved remote voting. The House did, and the Senate did, and yesterday was the first day to actually vote remotely.
How'd that go?
It was a little difficult at first, but it worked, and we were able to get through session. Pennsylvania is the first state to implement that.
Wow.
So it's nice. I always said when I got into the Senate, I wanted Pennsylvania on top. Well, at least we got there on something, something other than healthcare issues. But so we were able to successfully do remote voting, and one of the 4 bills that we passed was unemployment compensation changes. For COVID-19, it eliminates the waiting period. It eliminates the having to search for another job. So as soon as your employment ends, and you aren't laid off, you apply immediately, and then you apply every week until the benefits are in place.
I think the benefit time period was extended as well, wasn't it, past 26 weeks?
Yeah, it was extended another 13 weeks federally, and that's part of what the legislation we passed yesterday allows the secretary then to match the federal changes. So even if the federal government makes a couple more changes, we can easily adapt and make sure that those changes are reflected in Pennsylvania.
And I think federally as well, you used to get 80%. I think they actually bumped that up pretty close to what your fair wage is.
It's going to be pretty close, yeah. There's some extra work being done there, money funneled into that. I can't give you exact numbers. I've heard conflicting reports on that. But it at least gives you something, that you're not running up credit card bills or not being able to pay rent or mortgages.
And you also mentioned as well some opportunities for small businesses to get some of those employment credits back for continuing to pay their workers through this whole period.
Yes, if you can keep your workers on payroll, then those loans that you're going to take to cover that can be forgiven. And that's the critical part. And it's nice to be able to keep people employed.
And I think that's going to be a big part of this recovery as well as far as small businesses in the area, because the big question talking to folks in the community is how many businesses and small businesses are going to be able to get through this whole process.
Yeah. This is critical to help them get through that process. And the talk of now is, are we heading into a recession? Well, absolutely we are. But it should be a V recession. Steep dive.
And then climb
back up. As soon as it turns around, it should be a steep climb back up, because it's not economics that caused this. It's this mitigation effort and the virus that caused it.
And you have to wonder down the road, when we look back at this 10 or 15 years, are we going to remember this more for the economic standpoint, or are we going to more worry about it from the health standpoint? Because as much as we're worried about, and we all want to keep everybody healthy, you wonder long term, are we going to see more of a financial impact on these small businesses? And we even talked off the air as well, and I mentioned earlier on in the week when we had our first of these series of programs on, we talk obviously about this virus so much, but how many other factors are we going to see as far as heart attacks, addiction rates, and we can go on and on and on. How many subcategories of different problems are we going to see pop up here?
You bring up a very good point. This is something I brought to the Secretary of Health's attention today. She didn't ask my question about that on our conference call, but I'm going to keep pushing the administration, because right now I feel like the administration is sitting there with the health experts around the table and nobody else. There's a lot of social ills that are going to come out of this, that are beyond just the healthcare aspect of it. You've got people that are home, people that can't pay their bills. Already we have 130 people every day who die of addictive overdoses. Are we counting those numbers? Is that number going to go up? Are we tracking those numbers? Alcoholism is a real problem because we're the only state where the liquor stores are closed. You can still get beer. I don't know how beer's life essential,
yeah.
But at least you have something. I'm not going to argue. I'm glad they're open. We've got issues with domestic violence, child abuse, all these things that are going to go up because we're trying to mitigate only one factor. And I just insist that the administration have a whole table full of experts around the table They used to call it the Knights in the Round Table. They had all these experts discuss the issues. I want to see them doing that. And I want more say from the legislature.
Because I think no matter who you talk to, everybody, this has affected the entire community, and everybody is feeling more stress on their lives than they did 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes, I'm very concerned about that. That's why I want these mitigation efforts relieved as soon as possible. Because, yes, we don't want to overwhelm our hospitals. Yes, we want to make sure that everyone gets the health care that they need as we get through this crisis. But at the same token, we don't want to make a whole other group of people sick.
We've also seen a number of event cancellations, and the Pennsylvania state primary actually being moved as well to June 2nd.
Yes. Every county was being very vocal, and I give Larry Blosser from the Election Bureau here in Fayette County credit for voicing the concerns, and they're very valid concerns. How can they train the poll workers if they can't meet? And they all have new election
Yeah,
equipment.
you're going to have a whole new voting system
Yes,
this year.
and technically we're going to be voting in a month. How is that possibly going to happen? You're going to create a crisis when it comes time to vote. So we've heard the call, and the legislature stepped up and put pressure on the governor, and he cannot change it. He was just going to say, no, we're going to keep it the same. Constitutionally, he cannot change the primary date. Only the legislature can, and we did that yesterday.
It was good to see that take place as well.
Yes.
Pat, great information. Anything else you'd like to add before you sign off here?
The primary is scheduled for June 2nd. So bear that in mind, mark it on your calendars, because voting is very important. We don't want to ever miss a vote, because that vote is what put in our governor that we have that made us all stay home, so keep that in mind. But that being said, just stay calm, stay safe, and stay home.
We hope everyone's staying healthy out there. Again, thank you for joining us for Inside South Union Township here on the South Union Township Network, a joint cooperative venture featuring Township Supervisors Bob Schiffbauer, Rick Vernon, and Jason Scott, Atlantic Broadband Cable, Armstrong Cable, and our friends at CUTV, including Gary Smith. For Senator Pat Stefano and Jerry Dupay behind the camera, this is Brian Morozak. Stay safe and have a great day.